growing up, did you feel safe in New Zealand?
Not really. Not really.
What's up, it's Church, and today it is my privilege to be talking to Tingilo Ness. This is a man of great stature, one of the original Polynesian Panthers. I'm very excited for this. We'll be picking questions out of a hat and getting to know each other. Brother,
Good
to see you.
All right.
Didunch.
Ready to go? Have you been arrested?
No, sir, I have not.
Good, okay, simple.
Have you been arrested, and how many times?
Yes. I think I lost count how many times I've been arrested or almost arrested or about to be arrested. Yeah, goes. I guess the most one I remember was the Springbok tour arrest, you know.
Yeah.
But then I also remember the Bastion Point arrests,
Yeah.
where there was 222 people that were arrested on the land up at Bastion Point and then carted by bus to Central Police Station, and we just blocked the whole Central Police Station because there was too many people to process.
Yeah.
When it came to the Springbok tour one, well, I ended up going to prison because of that, you know, so yep, I've been arrested. And the thing is, I think because of that experience, I'm not afraid to be arrested. So the cause has got to be really good, you know, really good before I ever go that way again.
This question is, what did your family think about the Panthers?
Oh, I can laugh about it now, but Church, you know, my mum wasn't too happy about me getting involved in the Polynesian Panthers. Sure. I think as a parent now I understand. She would have been worried about me, you know, getting into trouble, getting arrested, and bringing shame. In fact, you know, she didn't want the attention. She certainly didn't need the attention, you know, being a solo mum and that, and her son being out in the papers or getting arrested and doing time for protesting.
Right.
It would have been a very worrying time for her.
When you were starting your own family and you have sons like Shefu, who are, you know, coming out and wanting to be politically conscious and socially conscious and aware of their environments, were you quick to support their aspirations in terms of that?
I think as a parent I was worried, but I knew that being there for him mattered a lot to him. So, like, he was a baby when we went on some of the protests. And we ended up one time down in Parliament steps, you know, it was freezing cold, and that was over the Māori Land March in 1975. So he was only a year old, you know, a baby.
Yeah.
And when I look back at it, I endangered his life.
Right.
You know, it was winter, it was cold, and there we were on the steps of Parliament, you know, the old building Parliament, protesting for land rights. So when he eventually started into the music, he was already steeped in the history of protest and that. What do you reckon when people say Auckland is a diverse city?
Well, that's a very good question. I would say yes, but we're diverse in our communities, but the question is still to be asked if these communities communicate together or, you know, coexist. What do you think?
When I was growing up, there was a time when my mum used to ask our neighbour, who was a Samoan, for sugar. Yeah. There was conversation over the fence.
Yeah.
Today, you don't know who your neighbour is,
No, I don't know who my neighbours are.
Yeah, and you don't even know who they vote for. So those conversations, I think, are yet to be regained or they've been lost.
Yeah. This is a poignant question. How relevant is an apology to you?
How relevant is an apology? I guess that's talking about the Dawn Raids apology. Very relevant. The Polynesian Panthers have existed for 50 years now, so it's close to 50 years we've been asking and demanding and agitating for an apology from the government.
Yeah, it is our history. Whether whether there's shame to it, you still have to acknowledge that this is something that has happened.
Yeah, because I know, like, just talking to someone the other day, they said they don't really care. It doesn't really affect them at all.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, okay, there are still people in this country that feel like that.
Personally, if I'm to answer this question about how relevant an apology is to me, it's quite interesting because while I do feel very charged about my culture and my heritage, I don't have that same connection as you in regards to an apology. I've grown up where I've never really been concerned about what the government can or doesn't choose to do for me and my people. Like 50 years ago or so, how hard was it to live with the pressures to assimilate into New Zealand culture?
Well, I was expelled from Mount Albert Grammar School for not being allowed my own identity. You know, I had an afro back then, frizzy hair and all of that Pacific Island ways and culture. And I was expelled from one of the top schools in Auckland for not being myself. And I was so worked up and angry that I ended up with the Polynesian Panthers, who I felt, you know, were proud of who they were. Yeah. And in fact, were militant about it, you know, wearing the berets and the black leathers and Talofa shirts and all the cult, you know, and identity. That was the end result. I stormed out of that school, only realising a few seconds after that my mother was going to kill me. Right. Because she'd worked so hard to put me through, you know, all of that, shoes, uniform, books. That was a lot. For a solo parent, that's a lot.
I also went to Mount Albert Grammar.
Wow.
Some 50 years later. Well, I don't know if they did this in your time, but we used to have Polynesian assemblies. And they'd round up all the Polynesian students, year 9 to 13, and they'd just spend the whole assembly telling us how we were failing.
Oh, wow.
You know, when we're that young, you can only hear so much. You hear what you hear.
Church, I feel you. Wow, that's unbelievable, you know. That 50 years later, it still goes on.
I have to ask you a question. Growing up, did you feel safe in New Zealand?
Not really. Not really. Thank you, Church. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Okay.
You doing some recording or something?
Yeah, so every week we do about 3 sessions at the old Stebbing recording studio.
Ah, yeah.